Good evening. My name is Jack Devo, and I'm the chairperson of the Ware Zoning Board of Adjustment. This is the August 3rd, 2021 meeting, 7:30 meeting for the zoning board. We have three cases this evening. We have a continued case, 13-2020. Gil and Shelley Duquette, owner, Travis, the appellate, 271 Quaker Street, tax map 404, lot 85 residential zone, and a request for rehearing. And we also have a continued case for case number 10-2021, Jordan Estrada, Lewis Page, Thomas Page, owner is the owner, and Thomas Page is the appellant, and through Jerry Dugan Eggleton. Barclough Road, tax map 409, lot 20, residential agricultural zone, rehearing request. And the last case of this evening is case number 14-2021. Craig and Danielle Jones, owner, 39 Concord Stage Road, tax map 201, lot 27, rural agricultural zone, variance, Article 18, section 18.2.3. That said, we will move on to our first case. And with regards to the case, continued case number 13-2020, at the last meeting, we suspended our decision that we originally made, and to allow a draft decision better explaining the reason granting the variance. Town council was with us and had drafted the decision from our discussions. And we're allowed to consider any changes we wish. Okay, so with that said, so just to be clear, this is not the rehearing. This is our reconsidering our decision, and we have the following, which I'm going to read.
Jack, do we have to seat the board?
I'm sorry?
To seat the board?
Oh, pardon me.
Mark Moretti, member.
Very much.
Bobby Joe Plamondon, member.
Michael Meyer, member.
Malcolm Wright, member.
These are the members for all three tonight. Let me write this. Clarified and expanded decision, 271 Cricket Street. Gil and Shelley Duquette seek 2 setback variances to allow a garage to be built no closer than 15 feet on the side property line where 25 feet is required, and no closer than 30 feet to the front line, property line, where 50 feet is required. Though irrelevant to the board's inquiry, it's worth noting the garage has already been constructed pursuant to a building permit issued by the town of Ware, Hillsborough County Superior Court later found to be wrongfully issued. Following the decision, the Duquettes filed an application for an instant variances. On May 4th, 2021, this board granted the requested variances. Travis Cochran sought a rehearing. This board, recognizing that our decision may not have been explanatory as it should have been, suspended that decision. This clarified and expanded decision is intended to explain the board's reasoning in granting the variance. It is important to note that the only issue before the board is whether the garage may be built in that location. The board has no jurisdiction over the appearance of the garage or the alleged drainage problems created by the construction of the garage that do not relate to the garage proximity on the property line. So with that said, I'm going to read prong number 1. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest and would not violate the spirit of the ordinance. And this is our expanded discussion. The criteria that the granting of the variance would not be contrary to the public interest is related to the requirement that the variance must be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. To be contrary with the public interest, the variance must unduly and markedly degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance basic zoning objectives. There are two inquiries to the board should make in reaching the decision regarding these criteria. Number one, whether it would alter the essential character of the locality. Number two, whether granting the variance would threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. The board concludes, based on the evidence before it, that proposed variances would not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance and the public interest. As in the initial matter, the proposed setbacks, generally to prevent overcrowding, preventing overbuilding, and preventing safety issues, are met even if the variances are granted. The substantial setbacks are being maintained so emergency vehicles may access this and abutting properties, and the property is not being overcrowded or overbuilt by the addition of the garage. The abutter directly across the street from Duquette's had no objection to the variance, though the side butter, Travis Cochran, did object. Mr. Cochran claimed the essential character of the neighborhood is altered with the addition of which he characterizes as a steel industrial building, and that all other barns on Quaker Street met the frontage setback. As noted, the board has no jurisdiction over the material on which the garage is constructed. The board notes that while other accessory buildings may be set back from the road, many houses on Quaker Street are located in or within this front setback. Citing Bacon versus Enfield, Mr. Cochran also argues that the board has to consider the potential cumulative impact of granting many such variances. As the initial matter, Bacon allows but not require the board to consider cumulative impacts for granting many similar variances. Second, that portion of Bacon's decision was not joined by the majority of the Supreme Court, therefore, it is persuasive and not binding, authority.
And Jack,
Okay.
I would, oh, good. I was gonna say, I would stop there and have a
Yep.
discussion.
So at this point,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that, there's been many such variances granted, and, yeah. I typically would grant this variance on other applications.
Well, most of how I feel about it has already been stated in this draft, that there are many types of barns and garages and homes on the road. There are many that are very close. And we have no jurisdiction over the material. It's the place they want it. Does it fit the relaxed setbacks that we allow? And it does.
Thank you. No, I agree with the comments and what we decided to have as our position. And I just want to say, I know it's emotional on behalf of an abutter, but of course, across the street, who is actually literally across the street from the property, had no issues with it. And although there was a lot of other people coming in from outside, maybe a little further down the street, but also at public at large, that had all kinds of other issues with the type of building and all that kind of stuff. But as we mentioned earlier, that doesn't apply to this. So with that, I'm going to move on.
If I could,
Yes.
just to add
Go
to,
ahead, sorry.
for the first one, in this one specifically, it's not contrary to the public interest. It doesn't interfere with the road, it doesn't interfere with emergency vehicles as stated, and for that reason, it feels like that this particular property is warranted to be granted that variance.
Thank you. Malcolm?
I'm afraid I have something to say. I'm going to try to be brief, and it's about this brief. As the lone dissenter I find that the brief is a little bit misleading because this board is not unanimous. And this brief goes on about how this board has made a decision, and this board made a decision by a vote of 4. And I'm not comfortable with that inaccuracy.
Well, then why don't we add?
I'm
that?
not discussing, please.
Okay.
This is a closed deliberation, is it not?
You can speak.
Okay. The reason for my no votes across the board was I do not, and I still do not think the hardship was met. That's my clarification for my vote. I think that setbacks are there for safety reasons. And when you violate the setbacks, you are encroaching on the safety issues. Again, I promise not to go on, and I'm not. That was trying to clarify my vote. I do not think there was a hardship, and again, I don't like the way this was written. It was written well, but I think it missed the point that
Well,
I
we can
dissented.
add that language in. I mean, certainly, that's a valid point.
I'm not gonna write it for you.
No,
but
I'm going to write it for you, if
I
I
guess
may.
part of my point is this sounds more like a legal argument than it does a clarification.
Okay, that's fair.
It's a replacement of the original.
So we can say on May 4th, 2021, this board, by a vote of 4 to 1, granted the requested variances.
I'd agree.
I agree with that. Anything else?
Oh, no, thank you.
Good. We'll move on to 2. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. The 2 critical inquiries in determining whether the variance would do substantial justice are, 1, whether the granting of the general public by denying the variance request outweighs any loss of the individual. 2, whether the proposed development is consistent with the area's present use. As set forth above, the board finds that the proposed setbacks are consistent with the area's present use. Moreover, there is no gain to the general public by denying the variance because the purpose of the setbacks are met by the proposed variance. The loss to the individuals, on the other hand, would be, meaning the applicant.
Yep.
Right. On the other hand, would be inability to have a garage on their property, which is entirely reasonable and permitted use on the property.
So,
You have anything to say?
just what I add to it is just concurring that having a garage is a reasonable and permitted use. There is no gain to the general public by denying them a garage.
And there is no restriction on the size of the garage in our zoning whatsoever. Mark, you have any?
No, again, this is something that I feel the landowner should be able to do.
Mike?
I agree with the comments in the decision for this article.
I would just like to clarify that, of course, there's no size restrictions, and that the garage is a reasonable use. It's reasonable. It's an accepted use. But the setbacks create a situation where size is limited. And that is, it may not be codified specifically as far as the size of the building, not our jurisdiction. But when we grant a variance to relax the setback, as opposed to not grant the variance, we are granting a variance to an oversized building because of the setback issue. That's part of my reasoning behind the I don't think there was a hardship because a smaller garage would have easily fit and it would not have encroached upon the setback. That's not an unreasonable option at all. So I get, that's my clarification and my reasoning.
Okay, you all set? Number 3, granting the variance will not diminish the surrounding property values. Again, the board's jurisdiction here is limited to the setback reductions, not the style of the garage. The board members are entitled to rely on their personal knowledge, experience in concluding that a garage 10 feet closer to the sideline and 20 feet closer from the front line than is permitted will not diminish the values of the surrounding properties. Though Mr. Cochran submitted letters from the appraiser opining on the surrounding property values would be diminished, that conclusion was based upon what? The appraiser considered to be low-impact commercial use of the garage, not upon the incursion and the step-backs. Therefore, the board gives the opinion no weight. However, Mr. Cochran argues the property value is diminished as a result of the increased water flow on his property from 4 design decisions. The permeable roof, the ground between the structure and his property line, which Duquette contoured away from his structure towards Cochran's property line, lack of a French drain, impermeable perimeter foundation. None of these allegations relate to the setbacks. Therefore, the board cannot and does not consider them.
Yeah, as far as the drainage, I mean, I don't, you could have parked a bunch of vehicles and had them draining more so towards the, Mr. Cochran's property, so.
I just didn't have any additional information. We can't consider it, so I have nothing to add.
I agree.
I would
Nothing
just,
to add, thank you.
nothing to add. And I would just say that, I can't imagine a case where a well-constructed building would lower property values as opposed to equipment, unsightly equipment, things like that, just being on property. So this is an opportunity to essentially put that stuff away and keep the property clean. So that, from a, what's the right word, from a passerby, essentially, that someone driving through the neighborhood, it would, improve the appearance of the neighborhood, and that shouldn't, detract from the value of the property.
Melba?
He said it.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, number 4. Unnecessary hardship will result from the denial of the variance. Small a period. There are special conditions of the property that distinguish from other properties in the area. Starting point of the unnecessary hardship analysis is whether there is anything unique to the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area and make it uniquely burdened by the zoning restriction. Here the property is 1.6 acres, slopes rather steeply towards the rear of the property, and I would say to the, I believe it's to the west. At least 2 abutters noted that there is nowhere else to put the garage, and the board has taken a site visit, concurred with these opinions. Other locations would require extensive fill and/or tree removal to accommodate the construction of the garage. Mr. Cochran argues Duquettes have testified that there are other conforming places on the property to locate the garage. However, those locations will require removing a propane tank, having the well be in the middle of the door, in the doorway of the garage, moving power lines, while the spot may be hypothetical possible locations. There are not reasonably possible locations in light of the existing conditions of the property. That's it. Oh, hang on. Make sure I didn't flip a page too much here.
That's it for small A.
What happened to 5?
Well, the very first section read was 1 and 2, so the numbers are just
Oh, sorry,
misnumbered,
yeah.
so.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And B. Sorry, there's only 4.
The
I'm
first
used to there
section was
being
1,
five,
the
yeah.
first section was 1
Two.
and 2.
B, no familiar and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of those provisions of the property. The general public purpose of the setback ordinance is to prevent overcrowding, overburdening, and prevent safety issues. As set forth above, there is no relationship between these purposes and the strict application of the setbacks requirements of this property. C, the proposed use is a reasonable use. A garage serving a single-family home is a permitted and reasonable use. To the extent Mr. Cochran disagrees with the conclusion, his argument is based on the case law from before 2010, which is not applicable in light of the legislative changes to RSA 674-33 in 2010. Mark, do you have any?
Nothing to add.
Alls I would say is that I did attend the site walk also. And
Official one or the secret one 3 days later?
Sir,
There's no
no
public
public comment,
input.
please.
I was at the official one with Mr. Cochran. And I know there's contention about the tape measure used. That in no way was ever used in any like legally way. It's just for perspective from our sake while we're there, just to get perspective of where we are in a general sense. It would never be something that I could see being used to say this is exact or whatever. I just felt like it was for us to get our bearings on what the actual setbacks are and what the relaxed setbacks are that we are able to use to grant the variance. So that was my take on the site walk. I did notice where the leach field, the tank, where everything else was, that lot was a level spot previous to all of this, and made the most sense in the place to put it, and it fits the setbacks that we allow.
And I would say that if you try to go in back of the house, to the left or the west of the house, this is a extreme drop-off where the cut and fill was placed to put the house. If you went behind the house on the right side, Cochran's side of the house, you would have to go over the septic system, and right now there is also a dog kennel or dog pen along there. And if you do go to the back there, it progressively gets less flat the further you go, because the curve of the ground, which I witnessed, drops off. So,
Financial burdens to make those kind of changes are a hardship that we can consider. And
Yes.
and it weighs heavily on our decision to say that it fits those setbacks. Or my decision, I should say.
I have nothing.
I agreed.
Malcolm?
Nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, conclusion. Finding that all the variance criteria are met for both the front and side back variance requested, the board therefore grants the variance with the following conditions. Number one, garage shall be constructed no closer than 15 feet to the side property line and no closer than 30 feet to the front property line. And number two, evergreen plantings shall be installed no more than 8 feet apart on the Duquette's property, halfway between the garage and the property line. So, see if I get this right. I will entertain a motion to accept our reconsideration of our decision.
How about to adopt the decision as read
Thank you.
And amended.
Mr. Chairman,
and amended?
Mr. Chairman, before we see that motion, I wanted to add one thing, and it's
Yep, go ahead.
minor, basically, but basically, I want to apologize if I sounded snappish earlier.
No, I totally understand.
And in spirit of what you were saying, I would suggest that we do change the wording of this brief, so that everywhere you say, this board, you say a majority of this board.
I can absolutely do that.
That would clarify the clarification, and it would sit better with me.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm good with that. So noted. And, trying to make a motion? somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the clarified and explained decision as amended.
I second.
Thank you. And a second. Any discussion? I don't really see I don't have any need for discussion. I think we pretty much have it
Agree.
codified as we originally intended but didn't say. And the conditions still stand and, okay, with
Yeah,
that said, I
agree.
will ask for the vote. Mark?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Jack? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
And
Aye.
okay,
I will get your revised decision tomorrow so that you can sign it and we can get it out.
okay, let's try the second one. Since we got all. Okay, this is the one here. Whoop. Here we go. Got too many pages. Okay. Okay, again, just like the previous one, explain that the board previously suspended the decision to allow it to draft its decision better to explaining its reasoning for granting the variance. Note that town council has drafted the decision with the board's consider and edit appropriate. The chair shall read the decision out loud to the board members if they have any suggested clarifications. Move on to this. Okay, clarified and expanded decision, Barclough Road, map 409, lot 20. This is Jordan Estrada, seeks 2 variances to allow construction of a single-family home on a 24-plus acres non-conforming lot without frontage on a Class 5 or better road. On May 4th, 2021, the board granted the requested variance through Council Thomas Page sought a rehearing, and this board, recognizing that our decision may not have been as explanatory as it should have been, suspended the decision. This clarified and expanded decision is intended to explain the board's reasoning in granting the variance. Okay, now number 1. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest and will not violate the spirit of the ordinance. The criteria that the grant of the variance will not be contrary to the interest is related to the requirement that the variance be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. To the contrary, to the public interest, variance must violate unduly and in marked degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the basic zoning objectives. There are 2 inquiries the board should make in reaching the decision regarding these criteria. Number 1, whether it would alter the essential character of the locality. Number 2, whether granting the variance would threaten the public health, safety, and welfare. The board concludes, based on the evidence before it, that its proposed variance would be not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance and public interest. The existing private drive, wide, well-constructed, well-drained, hard-packed, well-maintained. It is better condition than many of the Class 5, and I will say dirt, gravel grade Class 5 roads in this town, in some cases, some of the asphalt ones, but we're fixing those as we go along. There is therefore no public health, safety, welfare threat from the grant of this variance. Moreover, the 4 other lots located by the private, it's really 3 other lots, should be 3 other lots accessed by the,
There's no public input.
4 total, so 3 already
it
have
says
access.
other.
Yep.
So,
Excuse me.
so it's 3. By the private road are all, well, this isn't really correct. I meant to rephrase this sentence and get people's concurrence. 3 of the lots assessed by the road are all developed with houses or seasonal homes. So basically, lot 18 has a house, and it also has a set of barns or lean-tos or whatever on the back. And he also uses it for citing his home business, which he has a 10-wheeler and a low bed behind it, and possibly some equipment that he brings home occasionally. 19 has a, I would call it, the way it was explained to me was a manufactured home. I took it as being a trailer, maybe a small trailer, up there on lot 19. 20 has nothing, and 21 has a house and a accessory dwelling unit, and a bunch of like 8 little buildings or sheds along the property. So basically, 3 of them have some construction on it, and 1 does not. That's what I meant to say by this. Strata is the Strata, or the owner, which the Strata is applying for, lot is the only lot served by the road which is not presently developed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything to say on this, other than it is a nice road. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the road, the condition of the road and, is as this says, and everything else there to access the road already has something on it.
Yep.
So I agree.
One of the things I'd like to just touch on the road, which I was kind of surprised to see, was usually in the March, January timeframe, that's where, whether it's a driveway, a path, or whatever, or even a gravel, Class 5 gravel road like Bart Clough is, coming down from Huntington Hill, coming down from Roosevelt Road. You usually get the thawing part, which usually the top 2 inches thaw, and the base remains frozen. And what you now have is 2 inches of slippery mud until the base finally thaws out
Drains.
and everything drains off and then hardens back up. I was surprised to see that they did a very good job of constructing and maintaining that road over the years. I mean, and it was easily, especially beyond where the first house is, or I should say where the turnoff goes to the first house, is a good 30 to 40 feet wide, and it was plowed to the full width. I know I'm not helping out with Mr. Page's concerns, but it's a lot better than we ever see before now. So,
I just, yeah, I'd echo that. I mean, the road, the private road is in excellent condition, and that is a primary consideration when we look at private roads and variances on those roads. The other part is the character of the locality. It's, there's 4 lots there, and 3 of them are developed. It's unique in that respect.
Nothing to add, thank you.
okay, we'll move on to 2. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. The 2 criterias, two critical inquiries in determining whether the variance will do substantial justice are: 1, whether the gain to the public, general public, by denying the variance request outweighs any loss to the individual, and 2, whether the proposed development is consistent with the area's present use. As set forth above, the board finds that the development of the lot with a single-family home is consistent with the area's use. Matter of fact, I'll even go further than that. If you look at the tax map, it's pretty much all the way up and down Bart Clough. and maybe we'll go way back when it goes turn back to asphalt. It certainly is. And even going beyond this property, where it comes down to Huntington, where it takes a right. Moreover, there is no gain to the general public by denying this variance request because the proposed purpose of the frontage requirements are met by the proposed variances. There is safety and sane access to the property, which is sufficient for the owners, visitors, first responders to reach the property. The loss to the individual, on the other hand, would be the inability to develop the property with an entirely reasonable and permitted use of the property. I mean, there's 24 acres out there. There's gotta be a place, that's a primo place for a septic and a siting of a house, so that shouldn't be an issue. The property is in the condition. And without this variance, or these two variances, only lady slippers, trillium plants, and ferns will be growing out there. Maybe an occasional person that wishes to come out and do camping, but there's a heck of a lot of value to be put there for just for a camping site.
Yeah, I'd like to say that it appears that the lots were designed for homes. Yeah, and so a house, having the lot, it's a good use of the property.
I have nothing to add.
I don't have anything to add.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, 3, granting the variance will not diminish surrounding properties' values. Board members are entitled to rely on their personal knowledge and experience in including that building a single-family home on some 24 acres parcel of property served by the very good private road will not diminish the values of the surrounding property. I think it stands
Can't
on
really
itself.
add anything to that.
Absolutely.
Malcolm? You all set?
Yeah, thank you.
Add.
Number 4, and final. The unnecessary hardship will result in a denial of the variance. A, there are special conditions of the property that distinguish from other property in the area. The starting point of a necessary hardship analysis is whether there is anything unique about the property which distinguishes it from other properties in the area and makes it uniquely burdened by the zone restriction. Here, the property is unique because it is non-conforming lot, and I would also say prior to zoning, created prior to zoning, and is the only property on that road which is not developed with a residential use. I will state that 2 lots are on the road for residential use, which one has a accessory dwelling unit. And there is one lot that has some structure, such as a manufactured trailer, whether it's a camping trailer or whatever it is. And I believe there's also a small storage shed out there as well, which a permit was granted for. And I might also add that in '97, Mr. Page's property on Lot 21 was built, or at least shows as being built on the tax card. Lot 18 was built in 2006. Technically speaking, for them to get a building permit in those 2 years, they'd have to go through a variance, which I believe they did. And on top of that, in order for the ADU to be put on Lot 21, Mr. Page's lot, he should have had to gone forwards with a special exception, which I suspect he did to get the building permit. So, there's no talking.
Could you just clarify that point, please?
No, sir.
I looked. If you don't have a building permit, that's a different problem.
That was built in '86, the house.
Okay. You got credit for '97. That's okay. B, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of those provisions of the property. General public purpose of the frontage ordinance are to allow for safe access to the property by the owners, their visitors, first responders. Set forth above, there are no relationships between these purposes and the frontage requirements to the property, given the existing condition of the private road. C, proposed use is reasonable. Single-family homes permitted and usable use.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I agree, this covers it.
Yep, agreed.
Nothing? And conclusion, the findings that all the variance criteria are met, variance requested, the board therefore grants the variance with the following conditions. Be along with it.
And you probably don't actually have to read these. I took them verbatim out of the original decision, and there were no changes made to them.
Okay, so noted. But I will say about these conditions. First of all, anybody buying the Strata property in the future would find that there is a liability disclaimer in the registry, Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, which prevents anybody from claiming that they have rights to a maintained road. That's the whole purpose of that. Number two, and there's no sign there that exists. So, to that end, the reason for the sign is that should somebody decide to drive in, visit Estrada, or a delivery truck comes in, or whatever, whoever comes in, they can't claim they didn't see a big yellow sign up there. And that's to give tacit notice that they're leaving the transition of a Class 5 town-maintained road, going on to a private or a Class 5 road, the way the wording is. A Class 6 road, I'm sorry. So, that's two good reasons. And the third one is, even though it's an excellent road that was built and maintained, we want to be consistent and apply some conditions that the road must meet. And when we give it to the Public Works Director to be our sort of expert, a subject matter expert, determining what requires to the road to be done at the expense of the applicant in order for him to get the building permit. And the other thing is the e-signage. Right now, none of the lots, to my knowledge, has any it's not a requirement, but there's not any E911 signage. So when somebody comes whipping down there with a, be it police, be it fire, be it whatever, rescue, they're kind of looking for where the place is. And so that also provides some, credence to safety, where immediate access and identification of the location. So that's something the other people on the road should consider as well, because it is something. So we like bringing these up to these standards. And what's the last one? Just so I can, I should just read it. We did ask for the road, even though the zoning calls for 16 feet wide. In talking with the chief, fire chief, he recommended 20 feet would be better. And so from this point on, we do allow a 20-foot by 50-foot long section. So the width of the road is expanded out to 50 feet long, 20 foot wide, so that so two vehicles can pass each other. So they're not basically trying to drive off the road. So there's a hard all-weather surface for them to go on. So that's pretty much. Any other discussion?
Oh, sir.
Okay, motion. Did very good
Did
last
we
time.
have amendments?
A few,
A
yep.
couple, okay.
Yeah, so move to accept, the clarified and expanded decision, as amended.
I'll sec-
Second, oh, go ahead. Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
None? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Oh.
It's 5-0.
Thank you for coming.
Got an early night.
I missed something
Thank you.
Thank you.
postponed or something?
No, attorney's leaving.
Oh, okay.
We don't get to
Okay.
leave. Our night is not over
I
yet.
thought we were gearing down there, like, wait.
Where's my case?
Article 8.
Guess I did miss something.
I had it.
Different direction.
Is that-
What was it thick? It was fairly thick.
Under this one?
Actually, it was part of the,
There we
Piece of
go.
paper.
There it is.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I had them all sorted, but I can't find them.
It was sorted well.
Alrighty. This is the third one. This is case, yep, 114-2020. And it's property location 39 Concord Stage Road, tax map 201, lot 27, .48 acres, rural agricultural zone. Applicant Craig and Danielle Jones, 39 Concord Stage Road, Wareham, New Hampshire. Property address the same. List of abutters. 5 points of hardship. And this is for 1823. Sidelines, 25-foot buffer. 5 points of hardship. Picture.
Excuse me.
There's a top view schematic of the property, some pictures, and a rendition of the garage perspective. There's also this is the total property layout floor plan. Okay, let me read this. To whom may concern. Our neighbors Craig and Danielle Jones, 39 Concord Stage Road, would like to build a garage that is set near the rear boundary of their property. We are fine with this, as we are not able to see it at all in the summertime, and it will make very little difference our view in the winter. This is Edmund Quirk. Is that right? Okay, I didn't know what the last name was. I know you was Hadley.
Yeah, it still is in my own mind.
And we have another one. Dear City Zoning Board, we've been upgraded. I am writing this letter on behalf of Craig and Danielle Jones of 39 Concord Stage Road. They would like to build a garage on the back part of the property that would need a variance. As their immediate neighbor, I have no problem with this. Please grant the variance. Signed, Kurt Neeb.
Just to clarify, those two are there butters on either side of the property?
Alrighty. Okay, who would like to speak to the 5 points
Mr.
of
Chairman.
hardship?
You have to accept the application.
What?
I would like to move that we
Oh.
accept the application.
Thank you. Yes,
I'll second.
thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Now, who would like to speak to the application? Put it this way, who wants to read the 5 points of hardship? There you go.
Yeah,
And state your name, please,
yeah.
Danielle Jones.
when you get up there. Thank you.
Danielle Jones?
If you could just speak up too, so the microphone can pick you up.
Okay.
But before you do that, you want like a 14, could hardly read it, 14 by 24 garage? How big is the garage?
The garage is 14 by 22,
Yeah.
and then it has an additional 10-foot.
Breezeway?
Yeah, breezeway.
Okay.
Lean to it.
Okay. So it's a single-car garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So number one, you just want me to read the answers?
You read the question.
Read the questions?
Please.
Okay.
Just the bolded one.
Okay. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the proposed garage will in no way alter the essential character of the neighborhood. If anything, it should increase the property value of our home and subsequently the neighbors' properties as well. 2, please describe the spirit of how the spirit of the ordinance is observed.
Whoops. Hang on just a second.
Did I miss
please.
something?
I'm missing 2.
It's stuff.
Did I miss, is there a second? Oh, it's hooked together. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. 2, please describe how the spirit of the ordinance is observed. The spirit of the ordinance is to have buildings 25 feet from the property line, thus maintaining 50 feet between buildings. The garage would be 240 feet from the Hadley Quirk residence and 175 feet from the Neebs. We are not interfering with other homes or access. 3, please describe how substantial justice is done. Substantial justice is met because we are turning an abandoned building into our home that will be safe, well-maintained, and architecturally pleasing. This is a much better investment for neighbors and community as a whole. 4, please describe how the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. While our garage will be close to the neighbor's property line, Kurt Neebs and Hadley Quirk, their homes are very distant from the garage location and screened by trees and our home. It does not hurt their views and therefore is in line with the spirit of the ordinance. Please see the letters of support from our neighbors. 5, literal, I'm sorry. 5A. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Because the building was originally a school, very little land was deeded for its use. Subsequent additions, early 1900s, pushed up to the property lines on the 0.48 acres parcel. The surrounding properties are 7.57 acres and 8.5 acres. 5AI.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Okay. Because the school was built in the setback, it is necessary to build the garage connection in the setback to connect the buildings, and so that it does not obstruct the view of the historic building. 5AI. By building the garage 3 foot 5 inches from the rear boundary and 14 feet 10 inches from the side boundary, it allows us to maintain the historic view of the original school without in any way harming our neighbors. The rear edge of the garage would not be as close as the school is built. The school is 2 feet 4 inches away from the property line. And then 5B, please describe the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. The North Ware School was built in 1856. We are making substantial efforts to keep the character of the building and property historic while restoring it and maintaining it. And 5B, next box. By setting the garage back, it will ensure that it does not intrude on the view of the school from the road or the view of the buildings, or the landscape from the inside windows.
Okay, just, just so I get it right. You want to be no closer than 10 feet from the sideline?
Yeah,
I mean, this is
Explain.
important because hypothetically, if we ever get back to normal mortgages, and the bank actually is concerned that a lot actually meets zoning, they'll come out and send a surveyor out, and they'll measure it, and they find that you're 1 inch from closer than you should be, then you've got a problem. Or whether it's the side of the back line. So, do you know precisely what you need both on the rear line incursion, no closer than, no closer than?
We had the property surveyed,
Okay.
so we have everything.
So what's the number you want us to have? No closer than,
3'6" on the rear property line and 14'10" on the sideline, which would be the west side.
Yeah, so that's 5 double I.
okay. The west side is 10, what, 4?
1410.
1410.
I'm sorry, too many numbers. What's that?
14'10".
Why don't we say no closer
15.
than 3 feet on the rear, no closer than 14 feet on the side? Okay? I just wanted to make sure we got enough. This way here, in case somebody kicks over the stake or something when they're pouring the concrete. Yeah, yeah,
It does.
so, good. So, at this point, we'll close down the public hearing. You're welcome to take a seat. And I will ask, approving of butters wish to speak.
I have spoken
No, no,
to Danielle. Jack, I'm not good at this.
Get up there.
I have spoken with Danielle and her husband, and actually, when I got my notice, I was very pleased to see that the setback from my line and theirs was going to be 14 feet. I was very pleased. It's 14, what, 5? I believe my
14'10" is what we.
something, and I was very pleased to hear that. I thought it would be nice for them and nice for us. So, no, I have no qualms.
Very good.
Okay.
You can have a seat. Any other approving of butters? Doesn't look like it. Disapproving of butters wish to speak. Being none. Other boards, public at large? Being none. You're welcome to say anything else you wish, or not say anything else if you wish.
I'll just say,
But, name, please?
Craig Jones. This is a very unique property. I think most of you probably know it more as the Grange. We think of it more of a school, but that's just how it was introduced to us. As a historic property, we want to maintain the appearance of the whole property. So we're taking great pains to replicate everything on the exterior exactly as it would have been. So our windows, the full exterior, trying to keep it as historic as we possibly can. And with that, there is the property in front. So there are so many people that stop by the property, and they'll park out on the road just to look at it or take pictures. And we get, probably at least 2 people a day that stop and say, yeah, some will come over, some will walk in, but they're really cheering the project on. So we're encouraged by that. Our part is to make sure that the property doesn't lose any of that character. And I really don't see another place to put a garage that doesn't look like a garage, that wouldn't sit in front of the property. I mean, that would be the only way to meet the setbacks as they're written, is to put something right in the front yard and lose that whole view. So we're just taking a lot of effort to make sure that the property looks historic, stays historic, and we're really excited about it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Disapproving of butters wish to speak again? None. Public at large, other boards? None. At this point, I'm going to shut down the public hearing, and the board will deliberate on the 5 points of hardship. We still need to take each one as individually. So I'll accept a motion to accept Article prong 1.
Move to accept Article 1.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? I guess the only thing I would say is that looking at the layout of the lot, when you come in, there's a driveway that has to get back to the property, and there's a septic on the right-hand side. So there isn't a lot of room to put it out front. So this is probably the only place that it can be sited.
I agree.
The size of it is taken in consideration the setback.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's modest, I think, for,
yeah, being it's historic, it's kind of nice spot.
Absolutely. As Mr. Jen said, you know, it's a historic building. There's a lot of public interest right now because it's considered a landmark in Ware. Even if a garage is possible in another part of the lot, putting it there would essentially alter the character of the property and change it, and it wouldn't be good for public interest because that's, I mean, people accept that place as the Grange essentially. It's gonna be your home, but, you know, that, it'll probably be known as the Grange for a long time. So, in that regard, there's, I mean, I can't think of any
not
better
gonna say
reason for a variance.
and I think putting it
tend to
anywhere
agree.
else would affect the
Go ahead.
the character.
Any other discussion?
Did you?
I'm just agreeing with Michael. I think that the aesthetic of the property is important, and I think you're taking great pains to maintain that, so, great.
Good on you, yep.
Yep.
Move to accept. Do I do that, or do you?
We have
Move to accept
we have a
prom-
motion to second.
Motion, motion to
You
accept.
could move the
prom one.
question, I guess, but I'm gonna do it anyways. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I make it 5-0. 2,
Move to accept Article 2?
I'll second.
thank you. Again, spirit of the ordinance is to provide reasonable setbacks when you're designing new properties, you know, but this is certainly before the zoning, and nobody anticipated this in the future, so.
Yeah. Well said.
Agreed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, 5-0. 3, please.
Move to accept Article 3?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Everybody should have a garage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a reasonable use to have one.
Completely agree, especially in the winter.
Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0 again. 4.
Move to accept Article 4?
I'll second.
Again, I think historic nature of that village district. Maintaining the village district is, I think, would be an overriding issue, and I think this attempts to do that.
Yeah, clearly they're taking great care.
I don't see how there's any way it could diminish property values by
As it sits.
fixing it.
More discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to-
5-0, and 5 is in entirety.
Move to accept Article 5 in its entirety.
And I will second.
Again, this gets into the hardship. It's a very small lot, less than .5 acres, half an acre. And I think that's a special condition of the property, plus the location of the septic system.
Both abutting properties are already developed and have what they've got, so
Mhm.
it's not gonna interfere with any of that.
Definitely.
Any other?
Agreed.
None? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Where do you add your no closer than, is that part,
Oh,
your
let me
condition?
back up the bus and say, let's re-vote on the 5th one. Thank you, Naomi. We thought you were sleeping.
Probably should be.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, why don't you do that, 14 and 3.
Move to accept Article 5 in its entirety with the condition that the garage would be no closer than 14 feet from the sideline and 3 feet from the rear property line.
I'll second.
So that is what it's going to be? It's not going to be 14.5 or 14?
We gave him 10 inches, we gave him 5 inches.
Okay,
Within that.
okay,
No closer than,
than.
okay.
so they can go up to it, or less than, they can be away from it more. Okay,
I seconded.
Discussion?
No
Second?
discussion.
No discussion? Sveva?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. All right, we got some minutes. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We're happy to be here.
Welcome to Ware.
Thank you.
How's my minutes?
Bye now.
Bye.
Good night.
Yeah, I read this and I didn't see anything wrong. You even spelled Myers right, or Meyer right.
That hasn't been an
Myers'
issue.
name right.
That hasn't been an
Yes.
issue.
I wasn't here, so.
I'm
One
not the-
question,
I'm not the best editor.
I've got to find it again. Technically, did we continue those cases, or did we?
What?
They were suspended.
Yeah, I think the minutes
It
says.
isn't in there?
Well, it says that we continued them, and I don't
No,
believe that's
no,
actually what we did.
Suspended
Suspended
our
the
decision.
decision
Let me find
for
the,
discussion.
For clarification.
Clarification.
Let's get the real words, huh?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because I got to find it again.
You got the real words here.
The chair asked, so for the first one, the chair asked for a motion to reschedule of the hearing to August 3rd. Is that the right terminology that we
Well,
we need
let's
to use,
just
or?
go to what we had. I piled everything back up again. Where is the thing we did today?
The decisions?
Clarified and
There we
expanded.
go. It's on page 1. And it says, Chair should explain the budget. We previously suspended its decision to allow to draft a decision better explaining the reason for granting the variances. That's what we did. So that should actually be in there for both of them. Want me to read that again?
Where are you?
Well, I'm reading off this page, which is what we did tonight, and needs to splice it into the minutes correctly. So where would that minutes be?
I guess my question is, in the motion, the chair asked for a motion to reschedule the rehearing of case. Is that the correct?
No. Well, no, we didn't do that. What we did is we suspended our decision. This is, let's see.
To clarify.
This is what my direction was when I said it, okay? The chair should explain that the board previously suspended its decision, okay? So we suspended our decision.
And I think we had done that in June,
We did.
but this was we were essentially taking that
Clarification.
decision,
Sorry, I'm
pushing
off
that
by one
forward.
month.
Yeah.
Because
No,
it
I'm
does
sorry.
say that for the Estrada
I'm
case.
sorry, we rescheduled the Cochran, excuse me, the Duquette, because she was diseased, and none of us wanted to be that way. So that is correct, we rescheduled the meeting, so that is correct.
Rescheduled the rehearing of the case?
We scheduled the,
Expanded decision. To clarify yeah.
Because we did not grant a rehearing.
Right.
We just said we
I
will
agree.
have an expanded decision to explain our
Right.
decision.
I'll just say the intent was that, but probably was said, because she does it off YouTube.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
and that's fine, I just want to make sure we have the
Yeah.
right terminology.
So if you go back to YouTube, or if a judge has to go back to
That's true.
YouTube, I don't want to really,
no, that's,
You know.
that's
No problem.
really, really
No
short.
problem. And then for the Estrada case, I think it's exactly as
yeah,
Jack
because
stated.
you would have seen that the month before for the
So they
Duquette.
take the minutes from watching YouTube, because I was wondering how anybody does that.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so I just make notes for
That's gonna
her,
be painful.
Okay.
because sometimes you guys don't speak up, so I try to do it. Like Jack sits way back from the microphone.
Yeah.
I do?
You do, you should pull that right close. It's supposed to be
No,
6
I
inches
can't
from
see
the
my
microphone.
papers. Okay.
And then she uses the YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what we did was, we suspended our decision for Cochran on the previous,
Correct.
Right.
Right.
so we rescheduled the
Clarification.
suspension of the,
the notice that was posted for your meeting was a request for rehearing. The only thing I changed was that whole long note about suspending the decision, and all it said would there be no public input, because that's what I was asked to change to, so. It matches the agenda, matches probably what you said,
Okay,
so I don't think we need to throw stones that close.
we all set?
I'm fine with it.
So how about the request for the rehearing? Because this was our answer to the request of the rehearing, essentially,
No,
is that we're
we
not gonna
sus-
rehear it.
that's a different issue.
Okay,
We suspended our
muddy it.
decision to have a more articulated decision,
okay,
okay? That's still another shoe to drop.
okay,
All right, fair enough. I'm okay with it.
yeah.
Okay, I don't wanna get
That
into
was,
it.
the point was to articulate
And we did,
why we had a decision.
Move to accept the minutes.
Second.
no discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
I wasn't here, do I accept them? Abstain? I abstain.
4-0-1.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Flip the switch.